It was supposed to be just another quiet afternoon in our neighborhood. My wife had taken our newborn out for a short walk to get some fresh air, something she'd done a dozen times before without a problem. But today, something felt off. As she strolled through the community park, enjoying the calm, she was suddenly confronted by someone who's become kind of infamous around here, the HOA Karen. You probably know the type. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, acting like the whole neighborhood is under her personal surveillance. Only this time, she took it way too far, without any greeting. This woman marched right up to my wife and demanded to see her ID. No explanation. No courtesy. Just pure entitlement. My wife, still recovering from giving birth and holding our baby in her arms, was caught completely off guard. She calmly asked why, thinking maybe it was a misunderstanding. But the woman doubled down, claiming that she didn't look like she belonged and that she needed to prove she lived in the neighborhood. My wife, still trying to stay polite, asked her to step back and explained that she lived just 2 streets over. But Karen wasn't having it. She insisted that if my wife didn't hand over identification immediately, she'd call security and have her removed. Now, what Karen didn't know, and this is where things get interesting, is that my wife isn't someone you want to mess with. She's quiet, humble, and incredibly patient. But she also happens to be special forces. That's right. Highly trained, sharp as a tack, and more than capable of handling herself in high-pressure situations. She just doesn't advertise it. So while Karen thought she was intimidating some random young mom, she was actually poking a bear she didn't even realize was there. And let's just say, things escalated real quick after that. But the way my wife handled it, you won't believe what she said next, or what happened when I got involved. Stick around, because it only gets crazier. From here, now here's where things start to unravel. As Karen kept pressing, my wife didn't flinch. She stayed calm, didn't raise her voice, didn't even show a hint of panic. That's just who she is. Steady, focused, always in control. She asked the woman again, politely but firmly too. Step back, because she was making the baby uncomfortable. But instead of backing off, Karen got louder. She started pointing at the baby stroller, saying things like, "This looks suspicious, and you people think you can just sneak in here without anyone noticing." You people? Yeah. That was when things shifted. My wife realized this wasn't just about rules or IDs. This was personal. Karen didn't recognize her because, up until now, my wife mostly kept to herself. Between her deployment and maternity leave, she hadn't spent much time in the neighborhood. But that didn't give anyone the right to treat her like a stranger. In her own community, she'd lived here just as long as Karen, maybe even longer. Now, here's some background that puts it all into perspective. Before becoming a mom, my wife served overseas in high-intensity situations most people can't even imagine. She's trained in tactical defense, fluent in 3 languages, and has navigated more dangerous territory than Karen could ever dream of. But she doesn't walk around advertising that. She's just the quiet woman with the kind eyes who walks her dog early in the morning. So when Karen kept pushing, demanding proof, threatening to call security, even going as far as to pull out her phone and start recording, my wife could have shut it down right there. But she didn't. She wanted to see how far Karen was willing to take it. Because sometimes, the quiet ones let things play out for a reason. And she had a feeling this woman was about to dig her own hole. What Karen didn't know was that I was just around the corner, and I saw the whole thing. I started walking over, watching this unfold, and I could feel the tension building. Karen had no clue who she was dealing with. As I got closer, I could hear Karen's voice getting sharper. She was now on her phone, pacing in small circles, throwing out phrases like unauthorized presence and non-compliance. Meanwhile, my wife just stood there, holding our baby, saying almost nothing. She had that look, the one I've seen before, when she's assessing a situation, reading body language, watching every move. Karen probably thought she had the upper hand. But what she didn't realize was that my wife wasn't frozen. She was calculating. I stepped in just as Karen turned around, clearly surprised to see me. Her tone changed for a second, like she wasn't sure who I was or how I fit into the picture. I asked what the problem was, keeping my voice steady, even though I was already boiling inside. She looked at me, then back at my wife, and said, "I've already contacted HOA security. If you two don't have your IDs, I'll have no choice but to escalate this." Escalate over a mom taking her baby for a walk. Now here's where things got weirder. A couple from down the street walked by people we've waved to dozens of times. And Karen turned to them like she was looking for backup. "You've seen them around here before?" she asked. The woman looked confused, but nodded. "Yeah, they live on Sycamore." "Why?" Karen didn't answer. She just frowned and tightened her grip on her phone. My wife hadn't said a word through all this. She just rocked our baby gently. Eyes locked on Karen, but I could tell she was done being patient. What most people don't realize is that when someone serves in special forces, they're trained to handle pressure, but also to protect, not just in combat, but at home. That calm she carries. It's the result of years spent making split-second decisions where lives were on the line. And right now, she wasn't just watching Karen, she was protecting our child. And then, we saw two men in security uniforms walking toward us, radios clipped to their shoulders. Karen waved them over like she'd just won a battle. But she had no idea the real confrontation was just getting started. The two security officers made their way across the grass, moving quickly, but not rushing. Karen immediately launched into her version of the story before they could even ask a question. She pointed at my wife, then at me, then back again. "They don't live here. There." Refusing to show ID, the woman's being aggressive. Aggressive. My wife hadn't moved a muscle. The guards looked at us, then at Karen, clearly trying to piece together what was actually going on. One of them, a younger guy, stepped forward and asked calmly if we could confirm our address. I gave it without hesitation. My wife still said nothing. She didn't even blink. The other officer checked something on his phone, probably cross-referencing resident info, while Karen hovered nearby. Arms crossed like she was sure she'd caught us red-handed. I glanced at my wife. She gave me a tiny nod, just enough to say, "We're fine. Let it play out." But under that calm, I knew she was more alert than ever. She'd been in situations overseas where someone's expression told her everything she needed to know. Right now, Karen was giving off the kind of energy that raised red flags. Then came the next twist. One of the security guys quietly pulled me aside and asked if we were okay. That's when I realized even they were starting to feel something wasn't right. Not with us, but with her. He said they'd gotten a few complaints about Karen. Before, always acting like she runs the place, always jumping to conclusions. He said it in a low voice, like he didn't want to say too much, but the look in his eyes said plenty. Meanwhile, Karen was still pacing, still throwing around her HOA authority like it was law. She even muttered something about calling the police next. That's when my wife finally spoke. Not loud, not angry, just clear and direct. "Are you sure you want to do that?" The air shifted instantly. Even the baby went quiet. One of the guards raised an eyebrow. Karen blinked, thrown off. She had no idea what was coming. And what my wife said next would leave everyone speechless. Karen froze, phone still in hand, trying to figure out what my wife meant by that question. "Are you sure you want to do that?" It echoed in the air like a challenge, not loud, not threatening, but with the kind of weight that makes people pause. The guards looked at each other. Even I was holding my breath because I knew that tone. I'd heard it before when my wife was about to take control of a room, or a situation, or an entire mission. Karen straightened up, clearly not backing down. "Yes, I'm sure," she snapped. "You're trespassing. You don't look like you belong here, and you won't even show ID. That's suspicious behavior." That was the moment my wife slowly reached into her stroller bag and pulled out a small leather case. She held it up without a word. One of the guards leaned in, looked at it, then took a half step back, suddenly standing straighter. The younger one moved beside him, read what was inside, and then looked at Karen with a completely different expression. Inside that case was her military ID, but not just any ID. It had a clearance level that said more than words ever could. Karen stepped forward to see, but the guard stopped her. "Ma'am, I think it's best if you step back," he said. His voice was firm now, controlled. That's when it all started shifting. Karen's eyes narrowed. "What is this? Some fake badge? You people think you can flash something and scare us into silence." But her voice was starting to crack. For the first time, she seemed unsure. And that's when the second twist hit, one none of us saw coming. From behind us, a voice called out, someone we hadn't even noticed was watching. "Karen, what are you doing?" It was Mr. Harrison, the head of the HOA. He had a file folder in one hand and a look of pure frustration on his face.